Welcome. Sorry about my tardiness. Welcome to the September 19th Downtown Design Review Committee. First order of business, lower the level on your phone, please. Next, roll call.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner.
Present.
Charles Ainsworth. Ike Akinwande. Present. Connie Scothorn. Present. And Richard Tannenbaum. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next order of business is approval of the minutes. If everyone has had a chance to go over them, I need a motion and a second, please. Tannenbaum, Akinwande. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. There are no continuance requests. The consent docket is two items, 1315 North Broadway Place and 102 Robert S. Kerr. Is there anyone on the committee that would like to pull these into the individual consideration area, or is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to any of these items? Okay. With that, do I have a motion on the consent docket?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? The consent docket is approved. There are no cases withdrawn. The first case for individual consideration is 440 North Oklahoma Avenue. Is the applicant present? Would you come forward and state your name? Who is this? Okay. No? We have all these people leaving. Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Mark Tolson, GTF Design, and representing the Maywood 2. So I would like to, we're here. Would you like me to present now, or do you want Scotty to?
I'd like you to go ahead and tell us anything. You presented it before, but you might just...
Yes, so you sort of know. I'll hit the highlights. So Maywood 2, very similar to what we showed you in June of this year. Fourth in Oklahoma. It's a second phase of Maywood 1. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a similar site plan to what you saw in June. We're filling the entire block with building. We are excited about the second phase of Maywood 1. We did not design Maywood 1, but we're doing the construction administration on that. This is 160 market rate apartments on a now two-story with a one-story underground garage. We have really good response to the market on this. We're saving two notable historic structures to the east, and that's the orange part of this drawing. We have two levels of parking and one underground level of parking to create 314 spaces. We have clubhouse on the east facing downtown, 160 units around two internal courtyards. And that goes all the way up for 4 floors. The elevations you have seen before, and I have material boards if you want to see. It's a brick and stucco facade that's a little more traditional than next door, our fellow Maywood 1, but we're using the same brick. It's the same ownership, and kind of a contemporary residential type facade that fits the neighborhood. We feel really nicely. We do have kind of this brick band that kind of runs around the base that reflects off some of our notable Tudor structures on the east, and so that's the north elevation. And the east shows those two notable structures that we're keeping intact. We're building right up to the side of, and we are actually in heavy negotiations with a restaurant now to take that space, that entire space, and a well-known local restaurant, and so they want to take that entire band on the street there, on the east facade, but then the apartments go behind it. This is the Blakeney Place elevation that faces the south to the alleyway, and then the west elevation that faces downtown with our clubhouse. This is that little east side with the two notable structures. We're not calling them historic, even though they're close to historic. But our goal is to leave them intact as much as possible, restore the roof, paint the facades, restore the insides, and build right up next to them. We sort of let the architecture sort of stem off of that sort of 1935 Tudor gas station kind of feel, and so we feel like that it matches that. And what our goal is actually put openings through those and have that whole space be the restaurant, creating about 8,000 square feet, hopefully when we're all said and done, of restaurant space there. So I can answer questions on that too. The other discussion that we'll bring to you in November is our billboard. There's a billboard that has to remain on site, and we're going to bring that as a separate design to you and let you approve that. The way that we've been advised to handle Lamar, the billboard company, is to come to you first, get your recommendation that we really like it on the roof of the building, and then Mr. Bradshaw is here today representing the ownership. We'll go to Lamar and say, we want it on the roof, and then they'll say yes. We'll come back to you with the design, let you see it and approve it, and then we'll be able to proceed. So here to answer questions, and that's Maywood.
Four.
Yeah, is the billboard, that's a perpetual easement, so you have to...
Yes,
deal
it's
with
perpetual easement. Yeah, we've done everything we can do. A host of attorneys have been down there trying to remove it, get rid of it, buy them out. It's got to stay in the same place.
it. And so you have, that's not in this design. Hello?
Yeah. The goal is to leave it on the roof. It's shown on the. Let me back this up. The goal is it'll be on the roof of this space right here. I'll back it up again.
Oh, up there. So that meets their height
There you go, right
requirement.
here.
How big is that billboard?
It's 10 by 20, so it's not a full size, but
Well, Phase One's doing beautiful. I mean, construction-wise, clean, looks
Yeah.
slick. Dug a hole, let them park wherever, screened it off beautifully, so this is the same type of
this is
product.
the same thing. Yeah, same ownership, same everyone, except we're the architect all the way through. We're the only player. I'm doing the administration on it, so.
God bless HUD. Thank
There you go. Yeah, but our goal is to leave the billboard, take the billboard in the same place, mount it on the roof, and upgrade the design of it. Put a design frame around it and better lighting, and that's the goal.
Any other comments? I have a comment for the record. After you presented the last time, went back, looked at Maywood 1. Maywood 1 has created a very stark street front, and that is a very big concern. Maywood 2 has enough, I think maybe enough retail wrapping those corners to kind of interrupt that, but I really wish there wasn't parking right up there next to the street. So you have the retail that wraps the corners, and then you have a pretty major entry into the apartment complex. I believe that's what that is.
Right.
In the center. So those are the saving graces, but really don't want to see any more parking garages on major streets, especially when we're up against the parking that Maywood has already got on the street. I think that is distracting.
Yeah, we've had a difficult time with the parking. We're hearing from Level that they don't have enough parking. So we're nervous at the edge about how much parking we have there because it seems like the vehicle ratio is going up. The restaurant wants 60 spaces. So that's what they're negotiating. So we've just got this massive amount of parking that we've got to put somewhere. And so, yeah, so we've tried to break it up, hearing the comments from Scotty, also from Mr. Bradshaw with the entrances, bringing the clubhouse down to the front, where Maywood 2, the clubhouse is kind of distributed through Maywood 1, it's distributed kind of through the building. We kind of put it on the corner to activate the corner. So we've tried to address as much as we can, making that parking level as active as possible. We really have tried. So. Yeah.
Well, it's just, if this were in some other part of, a little bit further out, but this is one of the major, walkways into the downtown area, and I understand that your site is not very deep and it's difficult to get parking and some kind of retail or some kind of active space, but
Ideally, yes. I hear what you're saying.
Anyway, Scotty, did you have anything?
No, we agree with your comments on the parking. And as it stands now, we recommend approval of the first three items on the basis that it complies with the ordinance as referenced in Section C. We ask that you continue the signage until next month so that you have more information once that's resolved.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Any comments? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve items 1 through 3, and continue item 4, November 21st meeting, when they have the design on the final billboard location.
That was Tannenbaum and Faulkner. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Your project is approved. Thank you for coming for us, and thank you for giving us a preview. We really appreciate that. The next item, item 6B, 800 North Oklahoma Avenue. Is the applicant present? Can you state your name and write it down on the little pad? And once again, we appreciate the fact that you have presented before us before, but we would like to hear, for the record, about your project again.
Good morning. My name is Mark Lang. I'm an architect, a principal with the firm Lord Ecken Sargent, headquartered in Atlanta. And thank you for having us here again today. We presented in July, and we feel like we were well received at that time. We've made a lot of progress and refinements to the project since that time. It's 327 units of multifamily apartments in a 4-level wood frame building located at 6th and Oklahoma. The parking deck, which parks at the ratio of 1.6 spaces per residential unit, is almost entirely wrapped by residential construction along Oklahoma Avenue and 6th Street. There is almost 60% brick, with the rest of the materials being divided up between cementitious, two kinds of cementitious panels and stucco, and then the courtyard facades, the more interior courtyard facades, have less brick and more of the cementitious panels and stucco. Scotty tells me that you have had ample opportunity to look at the images, so I wasn't going to run through them. Instead, the Q&A seems like a good opportunity for us to address any questions you may have in greater detail. Is that right, Scotty?
Unless you want to see more.
Is there anyone that would like to see the images again on the committee?
I'm always happy to present them.
You did a great job last time.
Yeah, we feel as though we have stayed the course with the design of the building, and we have only improved it. The images that you're looking at are from what's called a Revit model in the world of computer architectural design. And what that means is that those perspectives are not artists' illustrations. They're actually taken from the same CAD files as the plans and sections and elevations. So the perspectives show very literally the current working drawing design. And we like it.
I thought it was already built.
Not yet. There's a blank slate out there. Scotty, did you have any comments on the materials?
They're using quite a bit of brick at the street levels, so that material is a durable product. They are using a lot of the different varieties of fiber cement board. They have presented us with the warranties that guarantee that it will last a significant length of time. We just wanted you to let us know whether or not you had any concerns about the use of that material in our climate because of the hail, and would offer any other suggestions, or whether you felt like it was, because of the location and the way it was attached, would be appropriate for this district.
By the way, we have brought material samples with us, as well as photographs of those materials in
We'd
our
love to see
installation.
those.
Oh, got it, okay.
We don't want you to bring those before and without us seeing them. We want you to feel like you've really brought those on purpose. So,
They've also given us this.
and they've given us a 30-year warranty on the Hardy, is it the Hardy panels?
Yes, the cementitious shakes, they are considered panels. It's not the hardy siding that you see
Right.
in kind of suburban applications. What we like about the shingles is the look that they give to the project,
Can I have one?
which contributes to what you may recall. We were trying to pursue a kind of industrial / arts and crafts look to the building, which would tie into Automobile Alley and also the Oklahoma Avenue, more modern expression down to Second Street. And so the shingle panels, which are and always were a rain screen application, they will give a softer, warmer feel to the architecture of the building than would siding, or we think even stucco. And the stucco we're proposing using is good old-fashioned hard coat stucco. It's not EIFS stucco. But we like the combination of materials, the balance of materials using the. If I could give you these, Scotty, these are pictures of the applications. We like the way that the shingles will kind of soften up the exterior facade and will balance the look with the more accent stucco panels, and then the two colors of brick. Those represent the general color range we're looking at. They may not be the absolute final selections, but that's the direction we're headed at. Not a super cold look. We think instead that something a little bit warmer to tie in with the arts and crafts look will be better for this building's location. On the other hand, the interiors and the landscape design, probably what we're aiming at is a look that will be even more contemporary and lightweight, and even maybe what you might call a boutique hotel kind of look. As though sometimes like an automobile alley, when there are industrial buildings that are redone, if the interiors were to be quite contemporary, that kind of juxtaposition is something that we find that dwellers like quite a bit. So that's kind of where we're headed. And the landscape architect is here today if you have questions about that as well.
You're so close.
We're not over here, but we need that on the record. No, you use it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
great,
Okay.
yeah. It's just that we're used to seeing you like 5 feet back. Sorry.
What trade you?
The rules of engagement, we're clearly...
No, you're good. We're good. I think, any other questions? Scotty? Any comments from the audience? Do we have a motion? Oh, wait. Do you have a question?
I was just going to comment and say thank you for bringing the samples of the materials. We really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. We
The
think it's
Hardy
gonna be
panels were a pretty big percentage, actually, of the total exterior, so it's really important for us to see them, and so
More
thank you.
expensive. Let us spend the money. I move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Tannenbaum, Faulkner, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much for coming to us.
Thank
And
you. It's a pleasure to work
thank you for
in
presenting
Oklahoma City.
before. We do appreciate the 4 presentations, so thank you very much.
Should I leave the materials here, Scotty, or take them with us?
You'll need
I don't think we'll need them again, and I can almost build a house out of what I've got in my house, in my office now, so
And that would be an interesting-looking house,
it would be.
wouldn't it? Okay, now we have item 6C, 421 Northwest 10th Street, 420 West Park Place. Is the applicant present? Will the applicant say hello and his name and sign himself in?
Brian Fitzsimmons, Fitzsimmons Architects, 2721 North Walker.
Hi, Brian. Will you tell us a little bit about the project, please?
Yeah, my name's a little long here,
Are you having to take up 2 lines to write that down?
almost. Okay. We should have slideshow. Is there anything to operate, or do you operate it? Let's see. All right. So this is at 421 Northwest 10th. Location is immediately east of Brown's Bakery. There's the large empty lot that's between Brown's Bakery and an existing building on the corner of 10th and Hudson. And what we're looking at on this first image is a north kind of aerial elevation looking across the top of the building toward downtown. And then the lower slide is more of a upright, but looking at the 10th elevation. The purpose of the building is it's a completely commercial retail facility anchored by Dust Bowl Bowling Alley, which is one that's in Tulsa that's moving here, part of the McNelly's group. And then on the upper level, a large beer garden restaurant that's called Fassler Hall, again, McNelly's concept. Those two tenants occupy the entire west side of the space. That area is split with a common outdoor corridor that connects the north to the south, and the entire east side is 2-level commercial lease space, tenants to be determined. The idea is to, provide these wonderful venues along 10th Street, and also provide a lot of interaction between indoor and outdoor, which is appropriate to the beer hall concept and street activity. You see the structure, this whole open area up above that is mostly covering or open to the open area beer garden with natural vegetation, and also the common courtyard that the other commercial tenants would utilize and look upon. So the idea is to create a very active exterior pedestrian experience that's, in essence, wraps the building. If we go to the next slide. Do I just hit? Yeah. So these we'll go through quickly, but these are kind of existing buildings that are within immediate eyeshot of the site. We have Brown's Bakery. This is a doctor's building being renovated. The old TG&Y next to Brown's Bakery. The old firehouse, which is on the northeast corner of our site. 231 on the corner of 10th and Harvey. This is Archer Printing, in essence, Caddy Corner across the street. And then the Go-Go Sushi. And then we look up the turning circle, and we have the 1100 Northwest 10th, the Plaza Court, the Osler Beyond. The other side, we have camps and the hospital up the road a little bit. 1212 recently finished 430, which is a residential. And the point of that is Midtown is very much a mix of many different types of buildings. And what's kind of interesting about that is it has an eclectic feel to it, but they all tie together, and they're all kind of expressions of their time. And so we were trying to honor that. This goes into the materials. This is the main focus, but keeping it very simple. It's a concrete frame and structure, red brick infill, and lots of plants. This focuses on the north side. We have kind of a, in essence, back door entry through the courtyard into the Fassler Hall and then the common courtyard, showing these two images in the upper left, as our design is somewhat of a reinterpretation of that concrete structure with the brick infill. And we have varied elevations to give it kind of that older feel interpretation, but it is new. If the tenant had his druthers, he would go into a very old building. This is the first time for them to do a new construction. These materials focus on the 10th Street elevation, and these are examples, but it gives you a sense of kind of the lattice screen that's going to be above street level with open storefront, and then a recent example of how the signage is integrated into that. And that's where we are focusing on the south elevation. And so what we see here is the concrete frame, the curtain wall, the yellow color is the lattice work, and all of this on the upper level is active balcony and open to the beer garden, covered beer garden, and then the entire lower level is basically curtain wall and with overhangs for protected sidewalk seating, etc. And you see up the middle the common courtyard, which connects the split level site. The north side of the site is approximately 12 feet higher than the 10th Street. And so there was some interesting design challenges to provide the accessibility, a common elevator that both places could use so everything could be accessible. I showed the early rendering, which I realize is somewhat more detailed than the more recent rendering. The reason I show this is to give you a little bit more sense of material. We kind of redesigned the front elevation, working with Scotty, to make this more open, more pedestrian friendly, more in meeting with the code. And I think we've ended up with a better design as a result, and also bringing some of the warmth back down into the street. These are other elevations, kind of a comparison of an early rendering where we had perhaps too stark of a wall at this location and opening that up. Site plan, this is the roof plan. You see the openings into the courtyards below. And I guess, let's see, how do you go back? Previous. One of the things to understand about the site is the surrounding buildings. And then also there's existing utility easement with the main sewer running right through the middle of the site. We, in the design of this, thought about the building as, in essence, facing 10th Street, and this, in essence, is the back, with the idea of preserving this not only for parking, but ideally a future building that would tie this courtyard, and eventually the courtyard would be completely wrapped. Parking situations as they exist right now don't accommodate that, but that's being worked on. So this addresses kind of the minimum height, which is part of a variance request. And I bring up the first point that, you know, while we were designing this, there was an exception to consider it. Now we're in process of a variance as the code has recently changed. And we are committed to making this building compatible with the surrounding structures, but also making an effort to increase densities and also provide significant streetscape improvements. This slide is a rough outline illustrating the scale of what's to the immediate east and west. My mouth is dry. I do. And then the setback, that one I think is considered somewhat of a gray area, again, dealing with the utility easements of whether we're actually fronting 2 streets or 1 street. We consider it funding the single street, the important street, 10th Street. And all that said, it's all about beer and bowling, so.
Okay, Scotty?
As we see more and more infill in Midtown, we would, we're hoping that they are able to maintain the 3-story minimum. We would have preferred that this be a 3-story, but we understand the context of the surrounding area. So we are asking that you approve this with the condition that they receive a variance to the height, because one of the addresses addressed from Park Place, they will need a setback variance as well. So we recommend approval with those variances.
I think this does a terrific job of fitting in with the surrounding buildings.
Thank you.
And it kind of brings their quality up a little bit in perspective. Which, you show a million different, not a million, but, like 5 or 6 different kinds of screening. What are you actually, maybe they all look different and because they're taken from different angles. I don't.
Let's see, are we still on the slideshow?
I like the one from the DeYoung.
Yes, that's copper. We're doing copper.
Not going to use that one? Okay.
And we'd be happy to bring the final design of the screen back. We're working with the companies that do this custom perforation, but that really, and the company that did the DeYoung and all that, those are companies that we're talking to actually get the graphics and all that. It's all custom cut. It's basically a perforation of steel, and then it will be powder coated. The one here, the red, although we're not doing red, is kind of the best illustration of the transparency that we're talking about and the relative scale to street level. Whether this is on a street, I don't know. And then the one on the right is an example by those same companies of how you can do the graphics simply by punching holes.
Right. I love the DeYoung one. Not so much the material, but the kind of the variation and.
Yeah, and that's part of our goal, is to not have it just be a static plain screen. And again, we're working on those kind of final patterns, but this is close to the concept, and our intent is to attempt to break ground in October. Hence, we're here today. The variance would be October 5th, and hopefully within a couple of weeks after that, we could actually break ground. So.
Yep.
Love the design, fits in, new and old, great combination, midtown density. This parking is going to be unbelievable. Is it just walkability and hope and pray? Just a comment. We have nothing to do with it, but my goodness gracious. There's no parking now.
Yeah, it is definitely being looked at very hard, and I think there will be hopefully a solution to that pretty soon. So.
A little garage coming.
Mm-hmm. We realize it's a problem.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. It's just we frequent all the establishments.
Many things that we've done, that's a side note that's not directly tied to this project, but we've kind of done in-house studies of how much street parking you could get within the surrounding 3 blocks just by restriping and getting parallel parking, and you can gain as much as 200 within just a few blocks.
Well, as a byproduct of all your development, everyone in Heritage is getting skinnier because we're just walking down there.
That's good.
Yeah, we're more fit.
Thank you.
Any comments from anyone in the gallery? Any more comments from the committee? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve with a variance and recommended variance for the height restriction.
And the building setback.
And, okay, that was Faulkner. Scothorn, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? You have been approved. Thank you for coming. Our next item is, oh my, presentation by Midtown Urban Renewal of the Midtown Urban Renewal Plan.
Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman and committee. I'm Emily Pomeroy. I'm with the Center for Economic Development Law. We represent the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority. The Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority has prepared an amendment to and restatement of the North Downtown Redevelopment Plan, which is an urban renewal plan adopted in 1998 for the area bounded by 4th and 13th, Classen, and the railroad. The plan was created in response to the bombing of the Federal Building and amended a few years later to support St. Anthony Hospital in our downtown area. The authority, the Alliance for Economic Development, the Planning Department, and the authority's consultant, Butzer Gardner Architects, held a series of meetings with property owners, institutions in the area, and the public, and created a plan that reflects the many changes that have occurred in the area since the plan was adopted in 1998, and provides legal authorizations pursuant to the Oklahoma Urban Renewal Law, and makes multiple recommendations for planning objectives throughout the area. As we just saw from Brian Fitzsimmons' proposed development, there's a lot of exciting things happening in Midtown right now. We're here to present the Midtown Urban Renewal Plan to you and talk to you, sure, that's okay, present the plan to you and talk to you about some of the recommendations over which the DDRC has jurisdiction. As a legal document, the plan gives the authority specific authorizations. As a larger undertaking, we've tried to really create a planning document and hope it can support DDRC's important role in this area. So Hans Butzer and Asa Highsmith from Butzer Gardner Architects are here to present the plan to you, and our team will be happy to try to address any questions after the presentation. Our team is on the back row there. Leslie Batchelor represents the Urban Renewal Authority, Asa Highsmith, Dustin Akers with the Alliance for Economic Development, and Brandon Malone with the Planning Department, and Hans Butzer, Butzer Gardner Architects. So I'll turn it over to Hans, and we can have some question and answer after the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Hans Butzer, Butzer Gardner Architects.
Good morning.
All right, and thank you for the introduction, Emily. So I'd like to walk you through the highlights of the plan. The plan is the result of a very, what I would consider a groundbreaking, public and inclusive, transparent process on behalf of the Urban Renewal Authority. And so much of what you see here is built up not only as a result of professional research and analysis, but also as a result of procuring public input from various groups, both at a large public meeting scale, as well as in terms of certain sub-district levels, such as Automobile, Midtown, and so forth. The graphic up here, of course, outlines the extent of the plan, basically 4th Street on the south, 13th on the north, Classen on the west, and the rail line on the east. We recognize that there is more work that could be commissioned at another time, looking at kind of the final gap between the highway and the rail lines, but we have kept that out of our scope for the time being. As Emily already implied, there are some key objectives to the plan. Overall, we're simply trying to reinforce existing corporations, entities, development efforts that are currently there, but to also facilitate and bring focus to the public sector's role in the area. So much of this plan is effectively trying to define what can the public sector do to help further support private development. So the recommendations, for the most part, are all about things that occur in the right-of-way. There are points of encouragement towards developers in how they define the public right-of-way, and those are codified through an appendix to the document that outlines form-based codes. And again, I'm happy to answer questions to form-based codes after I walk through the basics of the plan. The plan itself the document has a lot of research that we treat effectively as an appendix that serves as the underpinnings for our recommendations, but I would like to just simply focus on the key proposals. We do make recommendations for Florida area ratios, basically as goal setting for developers to help better define the public realm, the right-of-way. We've identified 23 catalytic sites. Those are sites that are large enough or are located in key locations that could make a big difference on continuing to build momentum through the larger Midtown area. We have met with Public Works to outline a strategy for public right-of-way improvements themselves. As Brian Fitzsimmons mentioned before, just simply introducing striped parallel parking in the street will go a long way at kind of encouraging people to see the parking is actually out there. And the document actually, we went through every street and hand counted all the opportunities for designated street parking. We've also outlined opportunities for structured parking should opportunities exist for public-private development. We have tried to give form to an already issued bond for the Classen extension. You may be aware there was a proposal several years ago to simply bifurcate a number of very developable sites in Midtown. We think that would be a real detriment to the developability of those sites, and so we have proposed an alternate way of interpreting the Classen extension, and it's a proposal that Public Works is very enthusiastic about. We have teamed up with the MAPS streetcar team, and using all of the research that we've done as it relates to the viability and the turnaround potential were a streetcar to come through the area, provided all of our research to the streetcar team. We did make our own recommendations based on what is best for Midtown. But as obviously many of you know, the streetcar team has come up with its final recommendations. Ours are simply suggestions based on our research, again, for what's best for Midtown. And lastly, we've identified opportunities when you start to look at 5-minute walking radiuses for residents in Midtown for enhancing existing public space or green space or adding green space. The FAR recommendations are really where we're placing more focus. We're not necessarily looking at height restrictions per se, but rather on density and trying to get more density in the overall area on average, and to encourage that construction to take place at the building line. Again, consistent with the idea of what will work best for enhancing walkability, for enhancing the retail environment, making people healthier, and enhancing the economic viability of the area. Again, these are all recommendations, catalytic sites. We very carefully stress these are simply recommendations. These are not requirements for these catalytic sites. We're trying to be proactive for developers. You'll also see proposed enhancements to how lanes can be restriped throughout the area, especially if a streetcar were to be introduced, how to basically narrow up the feel of the street so that car traffic is moving on a consistent but a more moderated speed, so that pedestrians feel safer, are more inclined to walk. People are more willing to do street parking and walk, another block or so. And again, outlining where we could infill with trees in the parkway or add additional areas for tree planting to provide shade, to help control dust, to make for a better scaled, walkable environment. Proposals for, shared parking opportunities. There are a number of churches in the area that have parking lots that sit vacant for most of the week. We're simply lending encouragement to private developers to get with these churches to see if any agreements can be struck, so that we can be more careful with where we start to invest in structured parking, which we all know is very expensive, relatively speaking. We believe to further enhance the sense of identity in the area, that much as we saw with Project 180, that a menu, if you will, of street furnishings that are unique to the district be developed and implemented along with the right-of-way improvements. And of course, there are some other aspects that are simply suggestions for policy enforcement. There are a lot of ordinances already out there, policies and so forth in place that would further improve walkability. We have, for example, many, many parking lots throughout Midtown that have several curb cuts, not to mention access through alleys. The greater the number of curb cuts, the less likely you're going to create a safer, pedestrian-friendly environment. So if we could just simply go back and kind of complete the paperwork, and again, this is a public sector piece that the private sector has to acknowledge should have been implemented, that would go far in strengthening the quality of the sidewalks and street environments. Class and proposal, extension proposal, as we had outlined. Again, much of this is already funded. The improvements are only in the right-of-way, okay, as proposed for the class and extension. And again, raising the question of what is the role of public art as well, and further enhancing the sense of the classic extension. The beautiful part about the class and extension here is that if it is executed as proposed, you will effectively, at any given moment as you traverse Midtown, you will always encounter that quality of the extension itself. So it is the nature of the diagonal makes it something that you really experience, and again will further lend to a strengthening sense of a district, a neighborhood throughout the area. All of these things ultimately are about enhancing value. One very important thing that we are offering for consideration is a bicycle boulevard. There is currently a master plan for bike lanes in general, but one thing that we feel very strongly about is that a more carefully pronounced bicycle boulevard, and these are being successfully implemented throughout the country, actually. But what we are offering is that Harvey, currently the lowest traffic count street in the district, which also happens to connect the premier civic and cultural facilities of our entire downtown, that also happens to connect some of the premier historic neighborhoods of the larger downtown area. But to develop Harvey as a bicycle boulevard, we think, would lend great benefit to the area, enhance its sense of quality, and to get us to start considering different types of development incentives. The more the bicycle boulevard takes shape, the more it can attract a unique type of development that may be a bit different than development more ripe for a streetcar, for example. And it doesn't take a lot of investment, most importantly, to implement the bicycle boulevard. In fact, Betsy, in another conversation, you asked, what does it take? Well, you can start tomorrow and start to ride it, tweeting, Twitter, and so forth. There are plenty of folks out there that can get that conversation going, and you just start doing it.
You just have to teach me about tweeting, okay? We'll
Well,
work on
I'm
that.
the last person to do that.
Buy the stock on it. Don't tweet, just buy the stock.
But, the bottom line, this is low-hanging fruit, right? And just as we saw with H&8, where the private sector kind of gets the ball rolling, the public sector jumps in, kind of facilitates things to kind of get carried out in a safe way. We think the bicycle boulevard here along Harvey could follow a similar model. And I'm counting on you, Betsy, to get that rolling.
Tweeting.
Get riding, I should say. And here we make some recommendations, very simple adjustments to the right-of-way to make it happen. This is nothing earth-shattering. It's just plain smart. And then lastly, there are already existing green space opportunities. We see a lot of great development in the way the federal building is beginning to open up their green space. They've become a great partner to the H&8th. We think that's a very important evolution. That's a very carefully located green space. Of course, the memorial We have Red Andrews Park, which currently, though it's designated as a park, does not serve its neighborhood. Rather, it works only for the most part at regional level. We are making recommendations as to how to incrementally allow Red Andrews Park to evolve into something that continues to serve as a regional draw, but also starts to engage its local neighborhood and to become a green space, an opportunity for recreation and so forth, and become a node or an identifier in the neighborhood. We've also identified a dog park, which is actually in process currently, as well as another pocket park off of Dewey across the street from the edge. So those are the core comments. Of course, we have phasing, all at the request of city officials to help them begin to look at how they could set aside budget monies to begin implementing the plan. Any questions?
Any questions?
Just a comment, I think this is phenomenal. And it's really going to give it signature, it's going to give it an identity and a presence, and stay with it. Where do you go from here? How do you get all this stuff implemented? Public, private? Is there a schedule, a pro forma schedule in mind? Because this is incredibly exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful effort, and you included it, you hit it all. It's just going to change that whole area. It's wonderful, I think. Guys?
I have a question. Is this only for urban renewal property, or is it for everything within the boundaries?
I defer to Emily.
The plan covers the entire area, so that 4th and 13th and Classen and the railroad. So the authorizations within the plan can and do apply to that entire area. The plan does provide authorizations to the authority to acquire property, though there's none in the works that we're going out to acquire. This is more an opportunity for, as Hans said, the public to work with existing property owners to help them increase density, get those properties that have lagged behind a little bit an opportunity to step their game up. It does allow owner participation agreements where these property owners can enter into agreements with the authority. It does offer assistance in development financing if a property owner does certain things to their property. So there are mechanisms in there that will allow the Urban Renewal Authority to help private developers to get their properties.
How does this impact our ordinance and how we, do you have some?
For the most part, it follows the intent of our ordinance. There are a few things that we probably would want to tweak that have to do with setbacks, because they're just a little bit out of compliance with what our ordinance wants. But other than that, it follows the guidelines and the intent of our ordinance very well.
Probably makes it easier.
I might just follow up on that. We have as an appendix this form-based code guidelines, and those are readily amendable, and those can be changed without an actual amendment to the plan. So we can and will work with DDRC to make sure that the DDRC ordinance mesh with those form-based code guidelines. And just to follow back on what I think was the initial question, where we are in the process, the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority has approved the plan. The Planning Commission approved the plan, and we're on the City Council agenda for next Tuesday for their review of the plan. Briefing sessions with all of the public entities and with the City Council members have gone really well, so we're really hopeful that the plan is approved on Tuesday. And we would like, with your permission, to bring the approved plan back to DDRC next month or whenever you find appropriate.
I don't think you need our permission for that.
Okay, well, if you'd like a receipt of the plan or whatever is most beneficial to this entity, we're happy to do.
We can bring it back to you for you to receive next month.
Right. I think it has to be on the docket for us to officially receive it, so,
Great. We'll get with Scotty and make sure that we get on the agenda.
okay.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you
Thanks.
for coming through. This is awesome.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. And with that, I think that we have run to the end of our agenda. Let me check. We do have some administrative approval reports, and those are all available to us online, right?
Right.
Any questions about any of those? There's lots of work being done in the Myriad Gardens right now. I run into it every single day. Any comments from the planning department? Any comments from the committee?
I understand we're, got to replace Stan,
Uh-huh.
and you guys are coming up sometime soon, or next year?
And Chuck and Gigi and I are off the commission as of next May.
Oh, so
We
we
will
got,
have run our course.
like, you're out, term limits, and
Yeah, term limits, can you
now
believe it?
now you can run for governor or something.
Right.
So we
That's
better, I
exactly
mean,
what
should
wanna
we,
do.
like, start start a process of identifying some folks?
Well, they have to, in all three of our positions, they have to fit a certain profile.
I understand, but like with Stan, I mean, we have an empty chair.
I think we're working on Stan right now.
Okay.
It sounded bad, but, yeah.
You work on him. I'm not interested.
Anyway, yeah, I think
Okay.
you guys would
I just want to be aware.
love to
that's
get
all.
some applications, right?
Yeah.
I think we have an
Architect,
ongoing
Real estate.
developer, yeah.
Okay. It'll be interesting. It won't be the same without you, Betsy.
I know,
And
won't
Gigi.
it be, it'll be different, huh? Anything else? Thank you, guys.
What about that, we had that one thing that we, next month?
Yeah, Chris.
Is that the one,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear him.
Demolition.
the fourplex in Midtown?
That's next month. Can we give them 60 days to do something?
Yes, no, they have asked for a continuance until November.
Oh,
Okay.
So, right.
So that one was, they were getting some kind of documentation that it was
SHPO.
truly historic or whatever. If with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for being here.
You can always come back after you rotate off for one term.